Welcome, folks. My name is Larry Taylor. I'm a life coach who specializes in helping people get unstuck spiritually. Welcome to this series about getting unstuck. In our first session, we presented a metaphor of a hiker who gets stuck in the mud and the steps that she has to take in order to get herself out of that mud. First, she has to get unstuck. Secondly, she has to clean off the clinging mud on the boots and lower legs that would hinder her from moving on. Then she has to actually continue her hike, renew her hike, move on. And then in our metaphor, in the fourth scenario, in the fourth thing she does, she gets unstuck. That's number one. Number two, cleans off the boots. Number three, resumes the hike. Number four, in our metaphor, she joins and trains a rescue team. So she's translated her experience into helping others. And as I mentioned in the previous video, there are many, many ways that people get themselves stuck. Addictions, relationships, especially toxic relationships or abusive relationships. People get themselves stuck by spending way too much money and getting themselves in over their heads in debt. Sometimes people feel stuck in their careers. They've advanced so far, they know that they have more potential, but the group they're with, the company they're with, they don't see a path to moving up the ladder to greater achievement. Their work perhaps has become not as fulfilling as it once was. There are people who are in pretty good marriages, but for whatever reason, life happens and things have gotten stale, and they just feel kind of stuck in the marriage. It's not that anything's noticeably wrong, and it's not that they want to get out of it. It's just that it's not exciting. They just feel kind of stuck. So there are thousands of ways that we human beings get ourselves stuck in the mud. And in all of those situations, we need to get out of the mud and we need to clean off whatever is holding us back, and we need to get back on the path. And we need to, or hopefully we will want to, translate our experience of newfound freedom into helping others who are also struggling. So many, many different ways that you can get stuck. And if you're stuck in addictions, I can recommend some good treatment programs to refer you to. If you're stuck in a marital situation, I can recommend some excellent marriage counselors who can help you with that. If you're stuck in your career, I can recommend some great career coaches who can really guide and direct you and help you to get unstuck in that situation and to realize your potential. But my particular focus is on helping people who are spiritually stuck. Now, what do I mean by spiritually stuck? By spiritually stuck, I mean several things. Oftentimes, spiritual stuckness is the result of a crisis of faith. Something happens which causes us to really question what we believe. So, for example, a child dies, and suddenly the parents are finding themselves in a place where they're questioning the goodness of God. They're questioning perhaps even the existence of God. Or a less dramatic case, and this happens to a lot of young people, they're raised with a certain kind of theology, a certain way of looking at the Bible, and then they get to college, or perhaps even beyond college into graduate school, and they discover that some of the things that they were taught are simply not true. And so they have a crisis of faith. What can I believe? I was reading this particular part of the Bible, and I thought it was saying this, and now I realize that if it's saying that, it's not accurate. So does that mean the Bible's not accurate? Does that mean I can't trust anything in the Bible? That's an example of being spiritually stuck. Another way that people get spiritually stuck is by being hurt by a faith community. And this happens in all different kinds of faith communities: Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, Islam, so forth. Because all faith communities are made up of people, and all people are fallible, and as human beings, we have a propensity sometimes to hurt one another. And so some people, that creates a crisis of faith. I mean, extreme example would be someone who is molested, a child who is molested by a trusted member of the clergy. That very often causes a tremendous disruption. Something is way off. Here's a person I believed in, trusted in, all this talk about, love and mercy and grace, and then they do this to me. It devastates lives. It creates spiritual stuckness, as it were. Doesn't have to be quite that dramatic. I know of pastors who have been in situations where their marriage failed, and as a result, their congregations and many of their friends turned against them. Sometimes they've wound up being fired from their jobs, being ostracized, being accused. I'm one of those pastors. That happened to me almost 40 years ago now. Sometimes it's less dramatic than that. It's being kicked out of a faith community because your beliefs don't quite line up. There are all sorts of reasons, why people get spiritually stuck. I know of people, again, I fall into this category also. People who are committed to anti-violence campaigns, or committed to civil rights, or committed to anti-war movements, or committed to preserving the environment. And then they come to faith, and they get involved in a faith community, and they find that the faith community is not only not emphasizing those things, but maybe even is fighting on the opposite side. The faith community seems to be pro-militaristic, or not caring about the environment, or so forth. And that can create a crisis of faith as well. And then, of course, there are the bigger things that I mentioned earlier, like the addictions and so on. But my emphasis is in trying to help people who, for whatever reason, feel spiritually stuck. Maybe it's a crisis of faith. Maybe they are at a place where they're questioning everything. Does God even exist? If God exists, what is God like? How do I know God? What's the purpose of life? How can I resolve this tension within me? I hear all these different opinions about belief systems, and they can't all be true. Some of them are mutually exclusive. So which ones are true, and how do I know? All those kinds of questions. Or just like the person who's, there's nothing really terribly wrong in their job, or there's nothing terribly wrong in their marriage. They just feel like the joy has gone out of it. A lot of people, that happens to them spiritually. They come to a place where perhaps they're still engaged in their faith community. They're going to synagogue, or they're going to temple, they're going to church in non-pandemic times. They're still reading the sacred scriptures. They are still practicing a prayer life, that kind of thing. But there doesn't seem to be any joy. It feels like their prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. It feels like they're just not, what's the word I want? Things just feel dull. They're stuck. And the first step is we have to get unstuck. Being stuck means there is some force that is sucking us down, holding us where we don't want to be. So step number 1 is to get unstuck. After we're unstuck, we could plod on, but we're going to be hindered. So we need to get rid of the things that hinder us. Knock the mud off our boots so that we can move freely. And then we actually need to move. It's possible to get unstuck, to knock the mud off your boots, and then just stand there. But that's not the goal. The goal is get back on the trail and get going. So we need to get going. And the fourth thing is that it is a real blessing when we can take our experiences and then translate them into helping others. Not only are we unstuck, not only are we free from that which was hindering us, not only are we enjoying hiking again, to use my metaphor, but in addition, we're able to help other people along the trail. And that's part of what life is all about. It's helping other people along the trail. So that's what this series is specifically about. It's not about being unstuck across the board. I'm not going to talk about how to get unstuck from addiction to drugs, or how to get unstuck from a abusive relationship, or how to get unstuck in your career, or how to get unstuck in a marriage that's gone kind of dull. I can refer you to people who are good at that stuff. But what I'm going to be talking about in this series of videos is being unstuck spiritually. And if you'd like for me to try to help you get unstuck in your spiritual life, I would consider that to be an honor. Thanks for listening.